Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Mataji. Krishna. Krishna. Let's offer our Mangalacharan prayers and then we can do that. For those who joined us online and who are watching online, we apologize for the technical difficulty. In few minutes, we will be broadcasting the verse that we are going to read on the screen. But up till that point, we'll be using books today. Nice to have books, hard books for a change. When we resume it, we'll let you know. So my apologies for those who are online, who joined us for the technical difficulty. So we start off with the Mangalacharan prayers. For those who are online and who are unaware of it, they are there on the page 1 of Bhagavad Gita. In the introduction it is there. If you can look it up, it will be there. Om Ajnanathimirantasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guroho Shri Yutapadakammalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tvam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhayascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Matsamo nasti papatma naparadhi cha kaschana parihare pi lajjame kim bruve purushottama. Bhumau skalitapadanam bhumireva avalambanam tvai jata paradhanam tvameva sharanam prabho. Govinda vallabhe radhe prarthaye tvamaham sada tvadiyam iti janatu Govindo mam tvaya saha. Radha radhita radhesha radhika prana vallabha Radha ramana vande tvam radhika prema nirjita. Hare Krishna. Thank you for coming for the penultimate, one before last class. So the next class before we go is, one proposal is that we will have a bigger class, in the sense like we can have a longer class, next class, where you can discuss any questions and answers one might have, and also we can go through the memorization verses, so on and so forth, and also complete the 9th chapter. So we can have an extended class. That's one option, but if the devotees feel that the 2 hours is enough, then we can just have 2 hours and try to complete the 9th chapter. So that is the kind of plan. I just wanted to bring it up upfront because later when I can ask for the feedback, then you can say which one would you prefer. So based on that we will do. Is everybody doing well? Yeah, given all things considered. Yeah. All right. So we'll read the 8th chapter today. This is called Taraka Brahma Yoga, or attaining the Supreme. Kindly repeat after me. Is everybody there? For those who joined online, I'm just want to repeat that we do not have the projection today. The devotee responsible for that will be arriving in few minutes or so. But till that time, then we'll use the regular book. So for those devotees online also, we are going to read the 8th chapter and the first verse. So kindly repeat after me. Arjuna Vacha Kim tad brahma kim adhyatmam Kim karma purushottama Adi bhutam cha kim proktam Adi daivam kim uchyate. Prabhupada Mataji, you can start from the back and then we give it to Venu Gita Mataji and then we can go from there. Sorry, I made you walk all the way.
Arjuna inquired, O my Lord, O Supreme Person, what is Brahma? What is the Self? What is the fruitive activities? What is the material manifestation? And what are the demigod? Please explain this to me.
Wow, there are many questions packed in one verse, right? And then you think that's the end of the questions? Okay, we'll see. First, alright, let's read the second one. Text 2. Adi yajna katam kotra Dehesmin madhusudana Prayana kale chakatam Jneyosi niyatatmabihi.
Who is the Lord of sacrifice, and how does he live in this body, in the body, O Madhusudana? And how can those engaged in devotional service know you at the time of death?
Thank you. So, you might ask where these questions are coming from. And if you see the 7th chapter, 29th verse on page 361, 7th chapter, 29th verse on page 361. So it is mentioned, Jara Marana Mokshaya Mam Ashritya Yatantiye Te Brahma Tadvidu Kritsnam Adhyatmam Karma Chakilam. So here it is said, Te Brahma and then Adhyatmam and Karma. So Arjuna asks these three, what is Adhyatman and what is Karma and what is Brahma? Kim tad Brahma, kim Adhyatman, kim Karma Purushottama. So it starts off like that. And then if you see the 30th verse on the 7th chapter, Sadi bhutadi daivam mam sadi yajñam cha ye viduhu prayana kale pichakatam jneyosi niyatatmabihi. So here again, Sadi bhutadi daivam mam. Sadi bhuta, and there is Adi bhuta and Adi daivam. And then again Adi yajñam. And how does he live in the body? These last two verses of the 7th chapter Arjuna has 7 or 8 questions based on the last 2 verses. And prayana kalepi, so the other thing is, how does one remember you at the time of death? Krishna surprisingly answers there are 7 questions in this, right? So let's count those questions, just for the fun of it. So first question is, what is Brahman? Right? That is 1. What is self? What are fruitive activities? What is this material manifestation? And what are the demigods? 5. Then who is the Lord of sacrifice and how does he live in body? 6. And how can those who engage in devotional service know you at the time of death? So these are the 7 questions. Surprisingly, Krishna answers those 6 questions in 2 verses and spends the entire rest of the chapter talking about death and how can one remember at the time of death. The other beautiful thing about 8th chapter is, for the very first time, actually Krishna talks about pure devotional service. This is a treasure hunt. So when we come to that verse, so the devotees can, if they can catch, there will be a nice treasure hunt to see that. So yeah. Text 3. For those who have joined online, please turn to text 3 on page 367 of chapter 8. Okay, kindly repeat after me. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Aksharam Brahma Paramam Svabhavodhyatmamuchyate Bhutabhavodbhavakaro Visarga Karma Samgnitaha. Do you want to read? Vishnu, go ahead, please read it and give it to Vrinda Sevika.
The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, the indestructible, transcendental living entity is called Brahman, and his eternal nature is called Adhyatma. The self, action pertaining to the development of the material bodies of the living entities is called karma or fruitive activities.
So here Krishna talks about Brahman. First thing is Brahman. That which is indestructible is Brahman. That which pervades the material body but is not changing, that is Brahman. So Srila Prabhupada writes that there are 2 types of Brahman. This is the Jiva is also Brahman and Krishna is also Brahman. But Krishna is called Parabrahman and Jiva is called Brahman. Jiva is never called Parabrahman because Parabrahman is something that is exclusively referred to as Krishna. There is an interesting thing though for those who are really want to if we read the purport on page 368 and then the 3rd paragraph from the last, starting with the word Chandogya Upanishad. Right? So before that, Srila Prabhupada writes about karma. Everybody there? The Chandogya Upanishad? Okay. The Chandogya Upanishad describes the Vedic sacrificial process. On the sacrificial altar, 5 kinds of offerings are made into 5 kinds of fire. The 5 kinds of fire are conceived of as the heavenly planets, cloud, the earth, the man and women. And the 5 kinds of sacrificial offerings are faith, the enjoyer on the moon, rain, grains, and semen. In the process of the sacrifice, the living entity makes specific sacrifices to attain specific heavenly planets and consequently reaches them. When the merit of the sacrifice is exhausted, the living entity descends to the earth in the form of rain, then takes on the form of grains, and the grains are eaten by the man and transformed into semen, which impregnates a woman, and thus the living entity is once again attains the human form to perform sacrifice, and so to repeat the same cycle. In this way, the living entity perpetually comes and goes on the material path. The Krishna conscious person, however, avoids such sacrifices. He takes directly to Krishna consciousness and thereby prepares himself to return to Godhead. Impersonalist commentators on the Bhagavad Gita unreasonably assume that Brahman takes the form of a jiva in the material world, and to substantiate this, they refer to chapter 15, verse 7 of the Gita. But in this verse, the Lord also speaks of the living entity as an eternal fragment of myself. The fragment of God, the living entity, may fall down into the material world, but the Supreme Lord Achyuta never falls down. Therefore, this assumption that the Supreme Brahman assumes the form of a jiva is not acceptable. It is important to remember that in Vedic literature, Brahman, the living entity, is distinguished from Parabrahman, the Supreme Lord. So, this is interesting on the process of karma, how the living entity takes birth in this material world. So, thank you. Text 4. Kindly repeat after me. Adi bhutam ksharo bhava purushas-chadi daivatam adi yajñohamevatra dehe dehabritamvara.
O best of the embodied beings, the physical nature, which is constantly changing, is called Adhibhuta, the material manifestation. The universal form of the Lord, which includes all the demigods, like those of the sun and moon, is called Adhidaiva. And I, the Supreme Lord, represented as the super soul in the heart of every embodied being, am called Adhiyagna, the Lord of sacrifice.
Thank you. So, Brahman is Akshara, and then Adi Bhuta, or the living nature, is Kshara, which means the physical nature is constantly changing. The living entity is part of the material world, the material world itself is constantly changing. But the living entity is eternal and is stable, because Krishna says in the second chapter that for the jiva or for the atma there is no change. Achaloyam adahyoyam avikaryoyam uchyate, he says in the second chapter. Avikaryam means that there is no change. So the jiva which is there in the material world, and the material world around is constantly changing. That is why no amount of material adjustments can give happiness to the soul, which is seeking happiness from within, not from without. But in this material world, the problem comes is that 99.99% of the people identify themselves with matter, though they are spirit. And that constantly changes according to Krishna. Because that is constantly changing, the living entity is frustrated and in anxiety. Why is it changing? My nature is eternal, but the matter or the situation I am putting in is constantly changing. Why? So, but Krishna says this is the nature of this world. You can't avoid it. But people say, no, I'll do some adjustment. I can fix this. I can just tighten that. I can just eliminate this and things will be all right. But once the puzzle is set, once again, because the change of material nature is happening, if one thing breaks, then other things have to be fixed. And in this way, the struggle for material existence constantly goes on. When Srila Prabhupada's disciples, in those days in ISKCON, everybody was pretty much full-time devotee trying to serve the mission. And they would go out to distribute books. And then people would accuse them, you don't have jobs. What are you guys doing? You are just wasting your time. Thank you. you are just wasting your time and you are just escaping from the reality of the world. For example, a student has to write exam, right? And his parents say to him that you have to write the exam, and then you just can't play because the exam time is coming. You better study for the exam. And if the child says, there is no exam, it's not real at all. It's a reality. You have to face it. So the child might not think or might not want to assume, but the parent is there to remind. So similarly, Krishna is like that parent. We want to forget that this material world is actually not our home, but Krishna is there creating this nature, material nature in such a way that it changes. One might ask, because God is the controller of material nature, why does He keep it changing so much? There is constant changes. Changes from relationships or people, changes from environment, changes from so many things, from our own mind that is constantly changing. One day you're happy, one day you're sad, one day you're elated, one day you're depressed, one day you're frustrated, one day you're angry. All these emotions, the mind is changing, the material world is changing, the people around, sometimes they are your friends, sometimes they are your bitter enemies, and sometimes you trusted them with all their heart and they took that heart and then crushed it into pieces and you're depressed. So many things are happening, and you might say, why did God do that then? If God knows that this is bad for me, why did He give a material world that is always changing? Because Krishna is saying that this is just the nature and this is not your home. And Krishna also says he is the super soul as Adi Yajna. And then he is also the Virat Purusha, who is the Adi Daiva. Because in the 11th chapter, when we read the second semester, we go to the 11th chapter, we see that in the universal form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, all the demigods are present. So that form or Virat Purusha is what is being mentioned here as Adi Daiva. You had a question? Yes, sir.
Thank you. So at a subtle level, is it safe to assume that the cause of this constant change is karma?
Yes. So in the previous verse, if you see the third verse and the translation, the Lord defines what is karma. The last line of the translation, it says, action pertaining to the development of material bodies of the living entity is called karma. So karma is not that is something happening to me. Karma is me as far as my body goes. Based on my past activities, I get a body that is suitable and befitting so that I can perform my activities. For example, in the Srimad Bhagavatam, we hear about the story of Maharaj Bharat, and probably we'll discuss it more than once in this class, because this is class about how to remember Krishna at the time of death. And we can see that in this life, he was Bharat, he was the perfect yogi, but he got attachment to a deer, and his mind was absorbed in the thoughts of the deer, and in the next life, he got the birth as a deer, which means whatever were his thoughts, they manifested in that body. The karma also includes thinking, feeling, and willing. And if I'm thinking, feeling, and willing in certain way, Krishna gives the body appropriate to my thinking, feeling, and willing, which means the body I received now is a result of my past karma. It's a manifestation of my past karma. So, but please understand, whether you are a man or whether you are a woman, whether you are in deep, abject troubles, whether you are happy in life, whether you are undergoing poverty or enjoying heavenly opulences. As a spirit soul, you have nothing to do with those. But designation is completely artificial, because they keep changing at such extent, at such pace. It is only because the nature, material nature, is having that illusory power to wipe out all the memory, to make us feel that this is who you are, but you are not. If you think soberly, I have had billions and trillions and quadrillions of bodies, and then I'm going to have many more if I don't endeavor to get out of them. So this is one of those bodies that I received. But because you are all here listening to words of Krishna, you actually are getting the maximum profit. That is the human body. Because you are making a permanent solution to those problems. That is the real value. Nrideham adyam sulabham sudurlabham. Nrideham adyam means this human body is the foremost, is a very fine, the foremost amongst all the bodies. And sudurlabham, it is very hard to achieve. But having got this human form of life, Atato Brahma Jignasa. Let's find out, let's inquire. Now is the time, this is my window to find out why am I struggling and then how to permanently stop. So, yes, we are escaping from the reality of this material world as much as a prisoner is trying to get out of the prison, which is a good thing. Because this is not our reality. We are escaping from this reality, which is virtual in one sense. All right. Text 5. This is a beautiful verse. Kindly repeat after me. Antakale cha mameva smaran muktva kalevaram ya prayati samadbhavam yati nastyatra samshayah. So that word nasti and atra has to be combined, so it becomes nastyatra in Sanskrit. So who's supposed to? Richard?
And whoever at the end of his life quits his body remembering me alone at once attains my nature. Of this there is no doubt.
So let's read the purport. It's a short purport. In this verse, the importance of Krishna consciousness is stressed. Anyone who quits his body in Krishna consciousness is at once transferred to transcendental nature of the Supreme Lord. The Supreme Lord is the purest of the pure. Therefore, anyone who is constantly Krishna conscious is also the purest of the pure. The word smaran, remembering, is important. Remembrance of Krishna is not possible for the impure soul who has not practiced Krishna consciousness in devotional service. Therefore, one should practice Krishna consciousness from the very beginning of life. If one wants to achieve success at the end of his life, the process of remembering Krishna is essential. Therefore, one should incessantly chant the Maha Mantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Lord Chaitanya has advised us that one be as tolerant as a tree, tarorapi sahishnuna. There may be so many impediments for a person who is chanting Hare Krishna. Nonetheless, tolerating all these impediments, one should continue to chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare. The very fact that we want to remember Krishna at the time of death, and Srila Prabhupada repeatedly emphasizes that by chanting the names of Krishna, one can actually remember Krishna. So, text 6. Any questions, doubts? Yes. Go for it.
What does it mean by my nature? It's not the Goloka, right? Nature means something else.
So, the Jiva and Krishna have the same nature in quality. You can try to understand why is that, or how does that work. See, Krishna, to serve Krishna is the purpose of one's life, because Krishna is the Supreme Lord and we are His eternal servitors. But if Krishna is always the Supreme and the soul is always below Him, then where is the question of our service to Krishna? Or there should be somewhere some equality for Krishna to accept and enjoy our service. If we have to serve Krishna as a robot, mechanically, with no feeling, anyway thinking, he has everything. It's like you go to a very, very rich man, right? And you give him $2. It's like he is a multi-billionaire. $2, what will he do? And why should I give? If you have that feeling, then you never will properly serve Krishna. But the nature of Jiva is such that there is some equality between Krishna and Jiva. There is some parity, otherwise there is no question of service or acceptance of service. If that rich billionaire to whom you gave $2 doesn't treat you as an equal friend, what value those $2 will have? It means nothing to that person. Krishna is thousands of Lakshmi Devis are serving Krishna. So what is our offering really to Krishna mean? And is Krishna really like playing cruel jokes on us when he's saying Patram Pushpam Phalam Toyam? Give me some water, a leaf, a flower. Krishna doesn't have it. He has it, then why does he want it? What will he do with that small leaf flower? Isn't that like a trivial offering? In fact, Sudama had the similar thoughts when he went to Krishna. But Krishna says, attaining to my nature means the Jiva and Krishna have the similar natures in quality. And therefore, that is the basis of exchange of affection. Otherwise, there is no question of affection. If a master always thinks I am the supreme, and in fact Krishna is the supreme, is he Atmarama? Yes. Can he satisfy all his desires by himself? Yes. Just by thinking about it. Just Krishna thinks, material world exists. If Krishna wants something, it just is manifested. Then where is the point? Oh, the spiritual life seems boring because there is a perpetual inequality that doesn't lend to devotional service. Or neither Krishna reciprocating when I offer devotional service. But there is a certain equality. There is a certain relishment that Krishna takes from Jiva, that he enjoys from us, otherwise there is no point in service. The devotees in Golok Vrindavan, or even in Vrindavan when Krishna appeared 5,000 years ago, Krishna was acting as their subordinate, not out of a sense of drama or putting on a show, knowing that he knows stuff. In fact, he lost himself. His own identity he gives up to enjoy the nectar of his devotees. So there is that certain nature that comes with Krishna. The other example Acharyas give is a beautiful green parrot. I went to Govardhan. Hundreds of parrots, beautiful green parrots. When they enter into a tree, they are actually lost among the tree. You can't distinguish between unless the parrot makes the sound, oh, that's a parrot in that tree, I see that. But the point is that when you are liberated or merged with Krishna, you still keep your individuality. But the nature, you acquire the nature of that tree, like the green parrot getting into the tree, though retaining the individuality. Does this help, or the answer was too long?
No, it does. So that means it's a liberation, like not the next birth, because this verse talks about.
No. In the next birth you don't become Krishna.
Yeah. No, I mean,
It's like, okay, I have attained the nature of Krishna. Next time when Krishna gives me birth, then everybody should worship me because I am Krishna now. Yeah, you're right. Excellent way of, you can just twist around the meaning to get a different meaning altogether. Good point. Text 6. Yam yam vapi smaram bhavam tyajatyante kalevaram tam tam evaiti kaunteya sada tad bhava bhavita.
whatever state of being one remembers when he quits his body, O son of Kunti, that state he will attain without fail.
So, is there a doubt about he attaining whatever state he is thinking? Krishna is saying without fail, whatever you think, thus you shall get. So, just shows how important it is that if we do not have spiritual life right from the beginning, then it is hard to practice in the old age. Because often in India and elsewhere it is said, why are you wasting your youth trying to chase after this blind stuff? You should enjoy life. You should have fun because that's needed in life. And then when you are old, then you should think of all these things. But the problem is that fun moments actually are deeply impregnated into our consciousness. And you just can't make a switch overnight because the body is conditioned to like that. The modes or the gunas are called ropes. Because and to achieve Krishna, at least one has to be on the platform of goodness. But if your whole life has been passionate, and then all of a sudden you can't switch, because switching from one mode to another is very hard. Krishna says you are set in that. That's what people say, set in their ways, which means they are associated with a particular mode. But having said that, there is a danger from those who are parents to push their children excessively to become Krishna conscious by force. Because every jiva has their advancement. So we try to work with the kids so that they can have orientation to remember Krishna. Whatever little faith they have, that is not extinguished by excessive force. There can go arguments back and forth. They'll say, oh well, either ways, by force or by hook or crook, they should somehow remember Krishna. Somehow, yena tena prakarena, somehow or other you should remember Krishna. This force is also fine, so why are you objecting? A valid argument. But the problem is, the force is there as long as they are dependent on you, or as long as they are afraid of you. In their teens, in their adult stage, because the negative perception of devotional service still lingers in their mind, they will do the opposite. They will, to get back at you, they will say, I won't do it. What are you going to do? So in that sense, that same force has been counterproductive. Those who are actually devotees, after some time, you might say the third argument is, okay, they are devotees, that's what you said. So if I give them force, then their devotional service is never lost. So it will only help. You see the argument? They are devotees, I'm just helping them. Beat, but help them so that I'm somehow pushing. But the fact of the matter is, because of the negative perception, when they go against devotional service, there is a danger that they might temporarily block. For example, a person for example, a child has been told, hey, don't eat onion garlic, this is so bad. And then, somehow or other, you are made feel guilty, or very, very negative perceptions come from this simple thing, which we avoid. There's no doubt about it. But children go to parties. They go not all the time to devotee birthday parties. For example, they go to their school friends' birthday parties, where they might or they might not, have that facilities. But when a very negative mindset is put because of this, in future, just to get back, they will eat onion garlic, and they are willfully not helping themselves, because there was that negative perception that happened. So having said that, there is a fine balance on how to make sure that the kids are Krishna conscious, but at the same time, their level is recognized and encouraged from that, rather than everybody trying to dump the pure devotee syndrome upon the kid. I want my kid to be the pure devotee. What are you? Oh, I'm so fallen, Prabhu. But I want my kid to be pure devotee. Okay, thank you very much. Anyway. Text.
Question, Prabhu.
Yes.
Quick question.
Yes, Ruchi.
So, regarding this translation, that whatever the state of being one remembers when he quits, he's going to get it without fail. Now, there is a situation in which even though one practices Krishna consciousness throughout his life, but in the end he may not be able to remember it. And there is another case in which one may not have practiced Krishna consciousness throughout his life, but in the end he may remember it. So, what happens in this situation?
So, can you help me clarify how the second thing will happen? Throughout your life, you never even thought about Krishna.
He calls out name of Lord. Just he has some faith that God is out there. Or accidentally maybe he call out or something like that. Yeah.
Well, that is a very fortunate person then. Okay, the question is little hypothetical. We'll make it a little more shastrical. Yes. Yes, please.
It reminds me of, is it Bharat Maharaj that thought of the deer?
Yeah.
Yeah. So Bharat Maharaj, when he was leaving, we all know that story. He had been a devotee, and then he was, in one lifetime, very distracted by the life of a little deer. He took care of the deer and raised the deer, and he was very affectionate towards the deer. And but at the end of his life, sometimes I get my stories confused. Did he call out for his son?
That is Ajamil. I was about to bring
I'm
up that.
thinking Ajamil.
Yeah,
Okay,
I was
sorry.
about to bring up that.
Okay.
But go ahead.
Okay, so Ajamil fell away from Krishna consciousness and lived a life, a debauchery, and the end of his life he called out Narayan. But he wasn't calling out the Lord, he was calling out the name of his son. And as a result of that, he was given the opportunity in his next birth to reconnect with the Supreme Personality of Godhead and perfect his life and go back to Godhead. In the case presented by Prabhu, if someone calls out Krishna's name at the end of their life, we would have to understand that they had some previous connection with Krishna consciousness. And then, according to the extent of their heart and their devotional activities, Krishna would reciprocate with that person accordingly. And as far as the person who spends their whole life as a devotee and at the end of their life doesn't remember Krishna, Krishna doesn't usually allow that. He incarnates in your mind. It's at the end of our lives, and I've worked with hospice in the past. It's a difficult thing. Leaving your body is difficult. Your body temperature changes, you might be diseased, there's pain, there's anxiety, there's things going on physically that take your mind away from anything, really. You get afraid. I mean, not in all cases, but in most cases. So how to remember Krishna at a time like that? And it's Krishna that's incarnating in your mind. He's remembering you. And that's really the reason, or that's really what happens as the reciprocation for spending your life in Krishna consciousness. Krishna doesn't forget you.
Thank you. Assume by chance that it so happens that one does not remember Krishna. Because there are cases, at least in the modern world, you might go to work and you are in the middle of work, and then you might encounter a heart attack and might suddenly pass away. One thing is, it is very hard to know what the person is thinking at the time of death, because the remembrance of Krishna can come in a split second. Before the heart attack can kill a person can remember Krishna, might call out his name. In any case, it is the mercy of Krishna, and we will explore that a little bit later in this chapter. It's a very good question, but the 8th chapter has an ample opportunities to explore that particular state. But thank you, Mataji, Jagrini Mataji, for the wonderful answer you gave. The other point with Ajamil is that perchance you remembered the name of Krishna. The whole episode was highlighted to show the power of holy name of Krishna. That even if you chant the names of Krishna negligently, without faith, in jest, in jeering, half-heartedly, with no pronunciation, still the name is so powerful that it acts. Ajamil uttered the names of Narayan, which prevented him from going to hell, because the Yamadutas came by to take him to hell for his sinful life. But Vishnudutas came and saved Ajamil. So it shows the power of the holy name. But then after getting that, he went to Haridwar. He had to do further purifications. That encounter actually awakened his past pious activities, as Mataji pointed out. He was a very good devotee before he fell away. And then later, that encounter with Yamadutas revived his consciousness. My God, what did I do? I wasted my whole life in these sinful activities. And then he became pretty serious. So in what way Krishna does help, it's hard to fathom. Because in another example of death, Bhishma Dev was lying on the bed of arrows. In the 9th chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam, the 1st canto, by that time, fortunately, his pain had gone away, because he was lying on the bed of the arrows, and it was said that the density of arrows on his body was such, not that he had one arrow here, one arrow somewhere here, another arrow here, 2 more arrows at the legs, 5 arrows in total. That's painful, but he had that much. It is said in Mahabharata that the density of arrows that were shot into his body was such that there was no space for one more arrow. Every part of his body had arrows, and he was lying on the bed of arrows. When Yudhishthir Maharaj, we know the story of how Yudhishthir came to ask Bhishma certain questions. And Bhishma said to the Supreme Personality of Godhead that my whole body is racked with pain, and I have been lying here with no food and no water, because only time he drank water was when Arjuna helped him drink water from the ground. And Krishna said, by my mercy, your body will have no pain, your mind will be clear, your intelligence will be sharp, and you can be able to answer Yudhishthir's questions. So at that point, in the many instructions that he gave, Bhishma said that nobody can know the plan of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The 1st canto, 9th chapter, 17th verse maybe, I don't remember the verse number. But he says that no one can predict the plan of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. 1917 or 13. 19. Let's look it up and then come down a little bit. Slowly. Okay. 1916. Kindly repeat after me. Nahyasya karhi chidrajan na hyasya karhi chidrajan puman veda viditsitam yad vijignyasaya yukta muhyanti kavayopihi. O King, no one can know the plan of the Lord Sri Krishna. Even though great philosophers inquire exhaustively, they are bewildered. So, if Krishna doesn't help one, or apparently not helping one at the time of death, Ruchir Prabhu, according to your question, it could be that he has a better plan, because nobody can predict. Oh, I remembered Krishna all through my life. Now, why is he not showing up? What's wrong with him? He has his own plans and nobody can know. So the best idea is to abide in the words of the Supreme Lord, knowing well that he will never fail to acknowledge and reciprocate the service of his devotees. X help? Alright. Let's go back to the 8th chapter. Text 7. Kindly repeat after me. Tasmat sarveshu kaleshu mam anusmara yudhyacha mayarpita mano buddhir mame vaishyasya samshayah.
Therefore, Arjuna, you should always think of me in the form of Krishna and at the same time carry out your prescribed duty of fighting. With your activities dedicated to me and your mind and intelligence fixed on me, you will attain me without doubt.
Here, Krishna is actually giving the seemingly impossible task. Always fight and then think of me at the same time. How is it actually possible? Is it even possible? Well, let's take it from the answer, it is possible. Otherwise, Krishna will not give such instruction. Krishna is not saying, create few planets before you die. You don't create planets, it's the job of Krishna. Create few life forms before you die. That is the job of Brahma. He is the person to create life forms. So when he says do this, we can try our best to follow his instruction. The other aspect is Krishna is never saying you should give up fighting. He didn't say to Arjuna, you heard Bhagavad Gita, good enough, you can retire now, I'll take care of stuff. He says, always you fight and think of me, and then you will come to me without doubt. So as a devotee, sometimes we have this question, maybe I should retire. And then I'll do so much service to Krishna. In fact, this work, the family, kids, they are big impediments, they are big obstacles on the path of. To an extent, they might be, but the situation is always favorable to serve Krishna, irrespective of whatever is your present material situation be. Otherwise, there is no meaning to this statement. If Krishna says that only if you retire can you think of me, then Krishna will not say this to Arjuna. If Arjuna can't do this, then what hope do we have to do that? 5,000 years ago, Arjuna had such fine intelligence. They had the perfect atmosphere to carry out Krishna's words. 5,000 years later, we have so much of distractions going on. And seriously, to think of Krishna always is a big task in of itself. And on top of it, fight, forget it. But the fact is, Krishna is saying you can do this. And if we can somehow endeavor to do that, having faith in Krishna's instruction, then Krishna will give us the strength. Because it is his words that we are doing. Make sense? Tasmat sarveshu kaleshu. So always, and here it's not, Krishna is not saying temporarily. Krishna is saying it because, Arjuna is fighting the battle, right? 18 days. He can die anytime. It's a fact. If you are in battle, means you can die anytime. Because he can die anytime, Krishna is saying, you should always fight and think of me. No, tasmat sarveshu kaleshu, at all times. Sarveshu kaleshu, which sarveshu means all the times, and kaleshu means times, and sarveshu means all. Tasmat sarveshu mam anusmarayuddha, always think of me. So that is something that one can do in spite of having all these family things. Makes sense? Krishna is giving us hope. Otherwise he'll just say, quit your job. Text 8. Abhyasa yoga yuktena chetasa nanyagamina paramam purusham divyam yati partanu chintayan.
He who meditates on me as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, his mind constantly engaged in remembering me, undeviated from the path, he, O Partha, is sure to reach me.
Thank you. Let's just read, because this seems to be like a very nice verse to always remember Krishna. But how is it practically possible is given by Srila Prabhupada. Just let's read the first few lines. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai. In this verse, Lord Krishna stresses the importance of remembering Him. One's memory of Krishna is revived by chanting the Mahamantra, Hare Krishna. By this practice of chanting and hearing the sound vibration of the Supreme Lord, one's ear, tongue and mind are engaged. This mystic meditation is very easy to practice, and it helps one attain the Supreme Lord. So if somebody asks you, if you are chanting, what are you doing? We are doing mystic meditation. Hey, those are not my words. That's Prabhupada's words. Mystic, we are doing mystic meditation. Oh, mystic. Yes, very mystic. It is. Because Krishna says, Tasyaham sulabha partha. By doing the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, which is a mystic meditation, he says, Sulabha, easily I am obtainable. For what the yogis took so much of mind and sense control and so much of hard work just to get to that point, Krishna says, by doing this, by remembering me, I am easily obtainable. And Srila Prabhupada says the best way to remember Krishna is to? Thank you. So that's why we chant Hare Krishna. Because people might say, you guys are not doing any yoga. No breathing exercises. I come all the way to your yoga, you say yoga center, and I come to your thing, then we are doing mystic meditation. That is our yoga. Because they'll say no breathing practices, no up and down asanas, hanging like bats, or seriously standing on one foot and then doing this and that posture. You guys are doing nothing. What benefit do you get? We can ask, what benefit do you get? Because you get some exercise, you go to gym, you can do gym yoga and get same thing as what people do the other thing. So the idea is why this easy process sometimes is mistaken as a cheap and ineffective process has to be countered by the words of Krishna and Prabhupada. We should have that conviction of why I am chanting in the first place. Having said that, yeah, okay, I'll tell about that a little later. Text 9. Kindly repeat after me. Because Krishna says, always think of me, and then here in the next verse he says, how to think of Krishna. Text 9. Kindly repeat after me. The meters changes slightly. Kavim Puranam Anushashitaram Anoraniyam Shamanusmaredya सर्वस्य धातारमचिन्त्य रूपम् आदित्यवर्णं तमसा परस्ता
One should meditate upon the Supreme Person as the one who knows everything, as He who is the oldest, who is the controller, who is smaller than the smallest, who is the maintainer of everything, who is beyond all material conception, who is inconceivable, and who is always a person. He is luminous like the sun, and He is transcendental beyond this material nature.
Thank you. Here Krishna gives 10 ways in which you can remember Him. Text 10. Kindly repeat after me. Prayana kale manasa chalena bhaktya yukto yoga balena chaiva bruvor madhye pranamaveshya samya Satam param purushamupaiti divyam. Jagarini Mataji, please do the translation. You shouldn't get a chance.
One who at the time of death fixes his life air between the eyebrows and, by the strength of yoga, with an undeviating mind, engages himself in remembering the Supreme Lord in full devotion, will certainly attain to the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
So, in the next few verses, actually, Krishna talks about the dhyana yogis who have achieved perfection and how they can raise the chakras, because the raising of chakras and all that is not artificial or mythological, but it's a factual thing that Krishna says. In this age, it's hard to control the life airs and raise them through the different portions of your body. But in those times, who could do that, then Krishna is telling what you should do and what is the destination if you do. So in the text 11, if you can see, these are the few things. Yadaksharam veda vido vadanti Vishanti yadyatayo vitaraga Yadichanto brahmacharyam charanti Tatte padam sangrahena pravakshe. Govind Prabhu. Okay.
Persons who are learned in Vedas, who utter Omkara, and who are great sages in the renounced order enter into Brahman. Desiring such perfection, one practices celibacy. I shall now briefly explain to you this process by which one may attain salvation.
Thank you. Text 12. Sarvadvarani samyamya Mano hridi nirudhyacha Murdhyadyatmana pranam Astito yoga dharanam.
The yogic situation is that detachment from all sensual engagement, closing all the doors of the senses, and fixing the mind on the heart and the life air at the top of the head. One establishes himself in yoga.
Thank you. Text 13. O Om Ityekaksharam Brahma. Let's do that again. Om Ityekaksharam Brahma. Vyaharan Mamanusmaran. Yaprayatitya Jandeham. Sayati Paramam Gatim.
After being situated in the yoga practice and vibrating the sacred syllable Om, the supreme combination of letters, if one thinks of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and quits his body, he will certainly reach the spiritual planets.
So let's read the purport, first few lines, because there should be some clarification. Purport: it is clearly stated here that Om, Brahman, and Lord Krishna are non-different. The impersonal sound of Krishna is Om, but the sound Hare Krishna contains Om. So if one has to chant Om, then the Maha Mantra that we are chanting certainly has Om in it. So one need not be unduly disturbed when someone questions you, you guys don't even chant Om? What's wrong with you people? So this is mentioned here. Text 14. Srila Prabhupada repeatedly emphasizes in the purports about the chanting. Time and again he just says the best way to remember Krishna is to chant. The 14th verse, kindly repeat after me. Yes, Jagrini Mati.
I just had one quick nice thing from Prabhupada years ago. He told us when asked about the different methods of attaining perfection as described in the past few verses, he said, yes, there are many ways to attain Krishna, but those are taking the stairs. And when you come to Krishna consciousness and practice what I've given you, it's taking the elevator.
Nice. Thank you. Certainly encouraging. Text 14. Ananya cheta satatam yo mam smarati nityasha tasyaham sulabha partha nityayuktasya yogina.
For one who always remembers me without deviation, I am easy to obtain, O son of Pritham, because of his constant engagement in devotional service.
Thank you. So this verse is the treasure hunt verse that I was saying. For the first time in the entire Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is talking about pure devotional service. Because if you are in pure devotional service, then what is your goal? And Krishna says, Ananya Chetata, Ananya Chetasa. So let's read the purport a little bit, it's an important purport. This verse especially describes the final destination attained, thank you Mataji, attained by the unalloyed devotee who served the Supreme Personality of Godhead in Bhakti Yoga. Previous verses have mentioned 4 different kinds of devotees: the distressed, the inquisitive, those who seek material gain, and the speculative philosophers. Different processes of liberation have also been described: Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, and Hatha Yoga. The principles of these yoga systems have some bhakti added, but this verse particularly mentions pure bhakti yoga without any mixture of jnana, karma, or hatha. As indicated by the word ananya cheta, in pure bhakti yoga, the devotee desires nothing but Krishna. A pure devotee does not seek promotion, does not desire promotion to heavenly planets, nor does he seek oneness with the Brahmajyoti or salvation or liberation from material entanglement. A pure devotee does not desire anything. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, the pure devotee is called Nishkama, which means he has no desire for self-interest. Perfect peace belongs to him alone, not to them who strive for personal gain. Whereas a Jnana Yogi, Karma Yogi or Hatha Yogi has his own selfish interests, a perfect devotee has no desire other than to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, the Lord says that for anyone who is unflinchingly devoted to him, he is easy to attain. So this is a very nice purport. And the Lord first time talks about Ananya Cheta, which means pure unalloyed devotion. In the previous chapter, he mentioned about the mixed devotion. But in this and the 9th chapter, actually, and they discuss pure devotional service to Krishna. What happens when you obtain Krishna is described in the next verse. Kindly repeat after me, please. Mamupetya punarjanma dukkhalayam ashashvatam napnuvanti mahatmanaha samsiddhim paramam gataha.
After attaining me, the great souls who are yogis in devotion never return to this temporary world, which is full of miseries, because they have attained the highest perfection.
Thank you. So, the next few verses talk about material world, but before that we'll pause for any questions, any comments. Because, okay, Lauren, and then we'll also answer the question Govind Prabhu raised in the WhatsApp group. All right, please go ahead.
Hare Krishna, Srivasa Pandit.
Hare Krishna.
The previous verse, 8:15, maybe I'll look at it in my book, 8:15, or so it says that after attaining me, the great souls who are yogis in devotion never return to this temporary world. Are there cases where that's not the situation, or?
Not according to Krishna. Because he says in when you say that attaining to Krishna and coming back, or what do you mean by that?
I guess when I read this verse, I was just curious for personalities like Srila Prabhupada, Bhakti Vinod Thakur.
I see.
You know, like.
Yeah. Right. So the great souls, they come back sometimes on order of Krishna to preach Krishna consciousness within this material world, either by will of Krishna or their own choice, either ways. But as long as they are here in this material world, they are not affected by it. Rupa Goswami says in the Nectar of Devotion, that's famous verse. Govind Prabhu, you might know. Karmana manasa gira nikhilapya avastatu jivan mukta sauchyate. Now I know. Iha yasya harer dasye karmana manasa gira nikhilavapyavastasu jivan mukta sauchyate. So it is said that those who are in this material world, but they have 100% dedicated their body, mind and words in service of Krishna, they are liberated even in this lifetime. Which means that yes, people might come sometimes as an empowered agents of Krishna, but they are not in the part of the material world. They do their service and they go back to Krishna without getting entangled here. Yeah, I'm just trying to think of an example. Govind Prabhu had his hand raised, so I'm just curious. Nitya Siddha Jivas. Yes, thank you. That's another point too. They are eternally liberated souls, but they come to help Krishna. And on that note, one should understand that they are ready to be put into any situation. Narayana para sarve na kutaschana vibhyati. So it is said in the 6th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, when Vritrasura or Chitraketu was cursed by Parvati Devi, and Chitraketu was not afraid or affected, and then Shiva said, look at these devotees of Lord Narayan, that they are not affected by any situation. Narayana parasarve nakutasana vibhyati. Sargapavar kanarekeshu tulyarta api darshinaha. Api tulyarta darshinaha. Thank you very much. So, those who are completely dedicated to Lord Narayan, Krishna might happen that he might put into hell, which brings up Ruchir's point earlier also, that Chitraketu Maharaj was such an exalted soul that he had direct darshan of Shankarshan, and he was on a very, very high stage of devotion, but somehow or other, nobody knows what influenced him to laugh at Shiva and Parvati and being cursed by Parvati. And then when he fell down, he was not like, God, I'm your devotee, you should protect me, but you put me into the body of a demon. He said, that's fine. This is the Lord's plan, I'm ready. So, just to add to your point. But he took the birth of Vritrasura, and that was his last birth. And he went back home, back to Godhead. If you don't have a connection of Vritrasura to Chitraketu, or there is a demon who is born and who dead and go back to Godhead, then you will say that's a fake story. I'm sorry, I don't believe it. How can a demoniac birth go back to Godhead? Because you spent your whole life trying to blaspheme the Supreme Lord. Of course, there are cases where it happened that they went back, Sahyajya, Mukti and so on and so forth. But Chitraketu Maharaj was an exalted soul, but he went back to Godhead. In fact, he said to Indra, kill me. You are just... Anyways, it's a whole other story, but if we spend time, we'll... Yes, Ruchir.
Yeah, if we have time, then I can ask.
Yes, please.
Yeah, okay. So, according to my understanding, I thought that we were with Krishna and we wanted to enjoy independently. We have been signed to this world. So, in other words, we did attend Krishna in that time, and since we wanted to enjoy independently, Krishna has punished us and sent us over here to experience the nature of this world so that we can try to go back to him.
Okay, we have had...
Is it true? Or?
We have had few of these times. The fall of Jiva. Yeah, the Jiva fall. So, the Bhagavatam, there is this question where how did the Jiva come to this material world? One of the questions asked in 3rd canto by Vidura to Maitreya. And whenever this question comes, you should remember 4 words and repeat after me those 4 words. Read the purports of Srila Prabhupada and other places. He says, why did you fall down? 4 words. Ready for it? Yes. Repeat after me. Misuse of minute independence. Misuse of minute independence. If anybody says, use this phrase, because this is what Prabhupada says. Misuse of minute independence. Krishna has independence, we have independence. But our independence is minute compared to Krishna. Somehow or other we misused it. Now, I use the word somehow or other because nobody, at least from the whatever I have read, there is no clear answer. And Srila Prabhupada says that while we can go philosophically debate, we don't have to really inquire about this question in a very serious fashion. The example I give is, assume that you are going on a cruise, right? Your family and you are really enjoying let's assume for the argument's sake, you are going on a devotee cruise, whatever. You are enjoying the prasadam, and then you are enjoying the kirtan under the stars, and the wind is beautiful, and you had a sumptuous meal, and then you went and slept in your cabin. And in the middle of night, you were nicely asleep. In the middle of night, something happened, the ship broke, and you are in the middle of water, clinging onto a lifeboat. That is your only hope. And then you are not sure what's going to happen. Will somebody rescue me? You see your family members are all dispersed. You don't know whether they are alive or dead, and you are alone clinging onto this lifeboat. After few anxious and nerve-wracking hours, a Coast Guard ship comes, and he says, "Okay, we have come to rescue you." And then they throw the rope. You look at them and say, "I don't want the rope. I want to know how the ship broke. What exact part of the ship broke that caused, which nut caused that damage, which bug in the computer software was that caused the problem." That person will say, "All right, you think about it, we have some other work to do." The example is that it has happened, and it's a fact. The fact that I am a jiva living in this material world means something has happened. Now, why it happened it's impossible to know. You go to an astrologer, he can give you what happened in the last birth, maybe 2 births down the line at the minimum. You can't go 10, even if you are an expert yogic Vedic astrologer, 10 births, maybe. You've been billions of births here. How do you know which birth caused that problem, and where were you before? How many times did Brahma had to live and die before you were here? And how can you factually nobody can give the right answer. Whether I was in the spiritual world, fell down here, or was I perpetually in the material world? Dvaimau Purushavaloke Ksharas Chakshareocha. Krishna says there are 2 kinds of beings. Those they are fallible and those they are infallible. Who in the material world are fallible, in the spiritual world they are infallible. That's what he says. He doesn't say how does the interchange happens. How does the rotation happens? So while it's a fundamentally fascinating question, it's a question that falls in not urgent, not important. So it's important but not urgent category. And one last point on that I say is, if you really have that burning thirst, go back to Krishna and ask him, because he is the perfect person to give you an answer. Nobody else can give you the right answer. Mate.
Thank you, Prabhu. Quick little point. This is a discussion ad nauseum through many groups of devotees. The Jiva fall issue, it's a real issue. And ISKCON devotees, followers of Srila Prabhupada, he told us in all of his books, his purports, back to Godhead, back to Godhead, back to Godhead. We were with Krishna, we fell somehow, but after all of this, we become pure of heart. We develop pure bhakti, go back to Krishna, we'll never come back again. There are others, great devotees, that believe otherwise, that the jiva never was actually with Krishna. They were with, I forget, another, not quite the material world, but there was another originating place that wasn't quite with Krishna. And from there they fell, and then they'll go back. But Prabhu's point is the actual point. It's non-issue. Prabhupada, we believe, we accept, because Prabhupada's explanation, back to Godhead. So that's how we believe. But ultimately, it's a non-issue because, as Prabhu said, if you're a drowning man and someone offers you a rope, you don't want to waste time asking how you got into that situation to begin with.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And before we go ahead, we have 13 more verses to cover. So Govind Prabhu's question was, in the previous chapter, we had discussed about Nishkam Karma Yoga. And his question was, are there no devotees of demigods? You say, Kameshtasthir Hitagyana. Those who are impelled by desire and lust, they approach the demigods and they worship them, and quickly the demigods give the fruits of their worship. But his question was like, are there no devotees of demigods who approach demigods with no material motives, with no desires? What of those kinds of devotees, right? Is that somewhat of the same question, or if you can care to elaborate, Prabhu, then we can discuss a little more. And then I don't remember all of the WhatsApp discussion that went through, because frankly speaking, you have to use the mic, because people are there online, and they are also in the WhatsApp group, so they were curious to say what they want to say.
So, for people who are not pure devotees already, or who have not accepted Krishna as ultimate authority, they are also acting in some selfless way in their lives for the betterment of society or whatever. So, can it be counted as nishkarma karma for those people?
While you can never say 100% of the demigod devotees are purely impelled by motive of lust and desire, the demigods, they have two types of mercy. One mercy is the cheating mercy, and one mercy is the actual mercy. Now, all of the demigods are the servants of who? Themselves? Krishna. So, they know intimately who Krishna is. They might not know completely as the two-handed form holding a flute. Sometimes they may not know that is Krishna. But nevertheless, all the demigods worship Vishnu or Krishna as Vaishnavas. Yes or yes? So when people approach them with a genuine heart, their mercy is become a devotee. But if you approach them with a desire to dominate and control and enjoy world, then they give you that much without telling you about Krishna. Did Shiva forget Krishna when he gave the boons to Ravana? No. Did Brahma forget that Vishnu was his lord when Hiranyakashipu was performing his severe austerities and he came? No. The fact is that they knew that mentality, because the demigods are so powerful, they know people's heart. They know this person is useless to get such instructions. He just wants to get power to destroy and dominate the world. Let me give that much. But on the other hand, there was a Brahmana who approached Shiva. He had a problem. The problem was he had to get his daughter married. And you know the story of how Shiva came. He said, go to Sanatana Goswami. He will give you whatever is the best in his possession, he will give that to you. And so that same Lord Shiva who the Brahman approached, though out of material desires, because his heart was pure, he gave him a higher purpose. It's the same demigod Shiva. He didn't say to Brahmana, okay, take this wealth and get your daughter married and live happily forever. He gave him the right path. So the demigods have two types of mercy. Cheating mercy and non-cheating. Yes, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Prabhuji, for that explanation. Actually, the question was slightly different angle. For executing Nishkam Karma Yoga, do we need to be a Krishna's devotee? Or
yes,
be a devotee at all?
Yes, you need to have why are we growing? Nishkam Karma Yoga means so when you perform your activities, you are see, there are two types of people. They say, I make my own destiny. I create my own fruits. So there is no concept of God in there. They are totally atheist. Yes or yes? Which means the fruits are born by the result of my effort. There is no God that is in place to give. But there are people who say that I do not want fruits. Implicitly you are implying that somebody else is giving me the fruits and I don't want it. Which means you accept God as the giver of the fruits. So you need some concept of God to at least perform Nishkam Karma Yoga. Genuine, either Brahman, Paramatma or Bhagavan, you need to have that concept. Otherwise you just can't perform Nishkam Karma Yoga. Because the devotees of the demigods are usually impelled by desires. And the whole purpose of worship of demigods is to give me fruits. Give me my fruits. I need quick success. Vishnu is a chalu fellow. He will take time. But you, on the other hand, are easy to please. And I can get stuff like this.
So one counterpoint can be that I'm doing batting on behalf of the other side now.
Please.
So if I am worshipping demigods, then basically all that worship is reaching Vishnu eventually.
Right.
So then indirectly I am worshipping Vishnu. So I have some concept of supreme authority, but not partial understanding. So and at the same time I am selfless, and say I am doing some things like there are some attacks on my religion, like the Sacramento book, the book issue, right? So I am working selflessly, very selflessly towards it. My only aim is to make sure that dharma is protected. But I am not at the Krishna consciousness level. So will it be counted Nishkarma Karma Yoga?
Yes, if it is offered to Krishna, yes, why not?
Yeah, but
because Nishkam, the thing is, what are you talking? You're talking of Karma Yoga, which means you are doing your duty, not devotion, not pure bhakti activities. You're doing your business, your family, your doctor, your medicine, whatever, your revolutionary politics, everything you are doing it from what your swabhav is, but you don't want the fruits of that. I'm going to Sacramento to campaign against inclusion of certain things in my books, and I'm doing it as an offering to God. That is Nishkam Karma Yoga. The karma, so it's not bhakti that is being done here. It is more of my karma, because that's my nature, to go and fight, and I'm the crusader, I'm more of a... This is my nature. So, does that help?
Yeah, I think it will vary depending on the person's consciousness. We cannot classify as a group, because I've seen that the main organization which is behind that thing, it has several classes of people. Some of them are atheists, most of them are materialists, some of them are demigod worshippers, and I would say a very, very minuscule minority would probably be like a Krishna aware person. So it will depend.
Exactly. So atheist cannot never be a Nishkam Karma Yogi, because yoga means some form of connection to God. It's just unrealistic. Thank you. Yep. It's completely even in a different context. Can atheist be a Nishkam Karma Yogi? No, that's my point. Is that? Okay, let's do the Hare Krishna. Yes, Vinagita Mataji. All right. Anyway, next class is a big class, so I'm detached. I'm Nishkam Karma Yogi. No fruits. That I'll complete this chapter here now. Go ahead.
This is a question, online question, Prabhu,
yes.
from Kushal Prabhu. He says, up to verse 8.8, Lord Krishna mentions about going back to him. But in verses 8.9 to 8.13, Lord mentions about reaching Supreme Personality of Godhead or Supreme Person. Why does Lord not mention about himself in all the verses? Why he's talking like a third person?
In many places, Krishna talks as third person in the Bhagavad Gita. Shall I? Okay, I think let's look it up. Prabhu, please bring up first canto, 14th chapter, 8th verse, please. Now that question has come up, we'll just... please come down a little bit. I want to see... Please come down, see the purport. Wait. Okay, yeah, go up, Prabhuji. Please go up, translation. Is he going to quit his earthly pastimes as Devarshi Narada indicated, as that time already arrived? So this is Yudhishthira Maharaja's fear, and let's see the purport a little bit. As we have discussed many times, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Sri Krishna, has many plenary expansions, and each and every one of them, although equally powerful, executes different functions. In the Bhagavad Gita, there are different statements by the Lord, and each of these statements is meant for a different plenary portions or portions of the plenary portions. For example, Sri Krishna, the Lord says in the Bhagavad Gita, whenever and wherever there is a decline in the religious practice, O descendant of Bharata, and a predominant rise of a religion, at that time I descend myself, 4.7, to deliver the faithful, to annihilate the miscreants, and also to establish the principles of occupational duty. I appear in every age. Bhagavad Gita 4.8. If I should cease to work, then all humanity would be misdirected. I would also be the cause of creating unwanted population, and I would thereby destroy the peace of all sentient beings. Whatever actions a great man performs, common men will follow, and whatever standards he sets by these exemplary acts, all of the world pursues. All of the above statements of the Lord apply to different plenary portions of the Lord, namely his expansions. So when Krishna comes, all of the expansions assembled within him, they come and speak Bhagavad Gita. And each of the statement of Bhagavad Gita is by the different plenary expansion of the Lord. If you can see this, so that therefore these are all he himself in different transcendental expansions, and still the Lord as Sri Krishna functions in a different sphere of transcendental exchange with different grades of devotees. So this is a very profound statement. Bhagavad Gita is not one book spoken by one person, but when Krishna speaks, because he is though one person, all the plenary expansions are assembled within Krishna, and each of those statements can mean for different plenary expansions of Krishna. Therefore, Krishna is saying, surrender unto him, and sometimes he refers to as a super soul. Sometimes comes to me, means I am Krishna, I am talking about myself. So in so many places, Krishna is speaking in different ways, and that's why it is said. Sometimes he says, this is my opinion, as Vaisheshi Prabhu was talking the other day. It's my opinion. Of course, Krishna is a person, so he has his opinion. So Bhagavad Gita, if you see it from that angle, you can see that when Sri Bhagavan Uvacha assumes a whole different meaning, it is the amalgamations of all the expansions which are assembled in the body of the Lord are speaking Bhagavad Gita. Is that sheds a very profound light on what Bhagavad Gita is, not simply a bunch of verses spoken by Krishna to Arjuna, though they are true. It makes sense? So sometimes he says me, sometimes he says Supreme Lord, because in 18th chapter he says surrender utterly unto him. Who is him? Are you not him? Is he different from you? Because he says surrender utterly unto him. Then you say surrender unto me. Sarvadharman pariti. Me, him, who, how? Is it? Okay. Should we continue? All right. Text 16. So next few verses, Krishna says, you come to me, you will not come back, but if you want go up and down in this material world, here is the picture. Text 16. Abrahma bhuvana loka punar avartinorjuna mamupetyatu kaunteya punarjanmana vidyate.
From the highest planet in the material world down to the lowest, all are places of misery wherein a repeated birth and death take place. But one who attains my abode, O son of Kunti, never takes birth again.
Thank you. Text 17. Sahasra yuga paryantam aharyad brahmano viduhu ratrim yuga sahasrantam teho ratra vidojana.
By human calculation, 1,000 ages taken together from the duration of Brahma's one day, and such also is the duration of his night.
So here Srila Prabhupada writes in the purport that the lifetime of Brahma is 311 trillion and 40 billion years. I was actually looking up. I said, okay, let's put that into perspective. Vaishish, thank you so much for letting me know. So to put that in perspective, I was thinking of the lifetime of a bacteria. I just looked it up on Wikipedia. It seems the bacteria lives for 12 hours. So how many generations of bacteria live and die in our lifetime? So roughly anybody? So 12 hours, so 365 into 100. Let's take that. 365 days into 100 years is 36,500. And then years into? No, 365 days. So then about 72,000 or 80,000 generations of bacteria live and die in one lifetime. So in Brahma's lifetime, quite few things happen. 311 trillion 40 billion years. You know what's the beauty? That is one exhalation and inhalation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Krishna, 311 trillion 40 billion years gone. So time is a very different scales set according to. But in any case, it's interesting. Text 18. Avyaktadvyaktaya sarva. Let us do that again. Avyaktadvyaktaya sarva. Prabhavantyah ragame. Ratriagame praliyante. Tatraiva vyakta samjnake.
At the beginning of Brahma's day, all living entities become manifest from the unmanifested state, and thereafter, when the night falls, they are merged into the unmanifest again.
Text 19, and we'll stop. We'll stop there. Bhutagnama sa evayam. Bhutva bhutva praliyate. Ratriagameva shapartha. Prabhavatyah ragame.
Again and again, when Brahma's days arrives, all living entities come into being, and with the arrival of Brahma's night, they are helplessly annihilated.
Here, avasha means helplessly, it's beyond our control. So next week, do you want a longer class, or we'll keep the 2-hour class? Little longer. So 3 hours should be fine, or is that okay? Yes. Okay. So let's do one thing then. We'll meet at 11 and we'll do up till 2. We get 1 hour break. But if the discussion overruns, then we'll still have a buffer of an hour. It's Thanksgiving weekend, so is any inconvenience? Anybody? Okay. So they can have at least a buffer. And the exam will be on December 3rd. We'll have it around 10 o'clock. Please don't be scared. Just read the translations, memorize the shlokas, and we should be all fine. I'll try to... Over a period of time, I have been accused, and in fact, some of the first batch has been angry about me setting the question paper little easy. So I have been accused of setting the question paper a little more easier, and they have been angry, saying that how come we got such a raw deal that you gave us tough paper and now you're giving easy paper. So there is a great hope. Don't run away from the exam. And if you are lucky, you will pass. If you are very lucky, you will fail, because you can read it again. Failure doesn't happen that often. So thank you very much. We we will meet next week again. And we extend a warm welcome to Vaisheshika Prabhu.